My dear Bagginses and Buffins.
By the blood of our people, are your lands kept safe?
I see in your eyes the same fear that will take the heart of me.
So do all who live to see such times.
By all that you hold dear, this good earth. There's some good in this world, and it's worth fighting.
You know, if I were during the third and I found out about this, I could argue it was treason if I was so inclined. Because essentially, they want him to prove that he's unfit for rule, so he would be dethroned and it would go to Durin the Fourth.
Yeah.
And Durin the Fourth is this is where it gets played for, like, this is where it's really sad, because he's like, I can't do this to my father. I know he's being corrupted by the ring, but he's still my father. And Disa's trying to be like, that's not your father anymore. The ring is fully controlling him at this point. So anything he does, don't think of it as your father doing. Think of it as someone infiltrating us and doing it, kind of thing. So yeah, it's a very sad scene. I actually like this scene a lot. And I can see how tough it is for Durin the Fourth to, like, reconcile what needs to be done, because he's known about this for some time. And back in season 1, he was even thinking about this before his father even had the ring. His father was not willing to change with the times. Like, the old grudges between elves and dwarves was done, and it was time for them to become friends, and his father was standing in the way of that. And in essence, his father was going to cost the elves their ability to remain in Middle Earth, and potentially isolate the dwarves and have them kind of fall under hard times. And so even back then, he was thinking about, maybe I would be a better leader. But now that he has to, like, actually like pry the crown away from his father, he doesn't know if he can make that finishing blow happen. So it's really sad. I actually like this storyline where it's going so far. I'm kind of excited to see what happens with the dwarf. I've always liked the dwarf stuff, so I'm always excited to see what we do with the dwarves. I'm less excited to see what's happening in Numenor. Because this is the trial by Abyss.
And there's a sea worm, and I got Dune vibes.
Yeah.
Dune vibes. Like, this is Dune.
Yeah.
Sea Dune.
This is Sea Dune, but it's dumb. Like, I don't understand what the heck is happening here and how this is supposed to work. Now, maybe it's not. There's plenty of times in fantasy where it's straight up making fun of, like, old, like, witch trials, where, like, if you survived, you were killed, and if you died, you weren't a witch. This is giving me that same, like, idea of, like, how are you supposed to survive this? It doesn't even make any sense.
Well, you're not. Yeah, that's
No.
the idea.
You honestly do need intervention from God to, like, prevent your death here. And so I never really liked these kind of moments. They're fine in some cases, but here it seems insane. I know they have this whole the sea is always right, but this isn't the sea. This is a sea monster. The sea monsters are not always right. Sometimes they wreck ships, and that's not right. I don't know. Also, I don't know if Numenor will ever learn this lesson. The sea is definitely not always right, because it brought Sauron into Numenor. So, for sure the sea is not always right. But they don't know that yet. But when they learn it, I wonder if they'll change their rhetoric. And we get this scene again. It's the same scene where the queen comes in. So, I guess we should set this up. Hermione, Elendil's daughter, is begging him to just say Farazan is king. Please just do what he says. They won't kill you. They don't want to kill you. You are essentially like a leader of the religious group, and they don't want you to die and have a big uprising. So please, just do what he says. They'll let you go. He doesn't listen to his daughter. He calls her a traitor. The queen then comes in. The queen that he is still arguing should be queen, who no longer wants to be queen.
Tells him to bow to Pharazôn.
Yeah, tells him, stop doing this, we need people like you. And he's still not gonna go with it. He actually, okay, I will say I've ragged on these writers a lot for some bad dialogue. I kind of like some of the lines that came up with this season, I'm not gonna lie, and here's one of them. Faith is not faith if it is not lived. I kind of like that line. It's not, it's nothing like crazy like Peter Jackson movie, but it's good. It's a good line. And I cannot deny that. Not like the Elendil line here, that his little speech here is pretty good. If I change, I would cease to be the man that you know, and all this stuff. That's all good stuff. The one where it kind of gets off the rails is when the queen, so he goes.
Well, he says, "My heart wants me to do this," and she says, "Well, what about my heart?"
Yeah.
And tears and.
Yeah, what the heck's
She's
going
in love
on?
with. I think she's in love with him.
I think so too. I think that's what I was like. What the heck? That's not supposed to happen. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know, but I don't think so. So yeah, what of my heart? So yeah, she's clearly in love with him at this point, and yeah, so he's going through with it. He is not going to bow. He is unbent and unbroken, as some people say. This is where he says the sea is always right, so don't worry about me. I don't really know if he thinks he's gonna be fine though. You know what I mean? Like, he seems like he is, but at the same time, it's a sea monster or something that's coming. So I don't know how he actually feels about it. It kind of reminds me of like Tyrion Lannister when he's all talk and he's like, I demand trial by combat, and then he's like, oh crap, I gotta fight the mountain. This is not gonna go well. Like, that's sort of the vibe that I would have if I were in that position. I would have just bowed to Pharazôn, to be honest. So I'm clearly not on the level of Elendil. He is a true believer, and he walks the walk, so to speak. Real quick before we get to that, though, we jump back to the dwarves, and this is where Disa and Durin the Fourth are going to block the path of the miners, so they can't continue digging to their doom. So she uses like.
Oh, you made me think. What? I mean, this is a tangent, but what would Sauron think of the Balrog? Would a Balrog coming annoy him because this is a challenger to his authority, or would he see this as a help to him?
So I've always thought it would be a help to him, not in like a you're under my control, but in the we operate towards the same goal, and that's how I've always viewed it.
Would a Balrog accept Sauron as his authority? Because
see, I don't know, but it's the same way that like would a wizard accept any human or elf as an authority? Not that Sauron is an elf or a human, but just like I just feel like that their own thing. They operate on their own, their own ideas, and I think the Balrog is more inclined to want Sauron to control the world than other people that might not want the Balrog around.
The Balrog wants to go back, take his nap again.
Yeah, the Balrog just wants to be left alone in his cave, and if Sauron's gonna help him, he's down. Like, that's how I view it. I'm still kind of confused why Balrogs and wizards have a complete opposite perspective on Middle-earth. Wizards are trying to guide it in one direction, and you would think Balrogs would be doing it but for evil, but instead they don't want to do anything. They're just lazy, and they just want to sleep the whole time. They're kind of like dragons in that respect, and so like that's why I also think that like they do make a reference to dragons at some point where, you know, Sauron, if Sauron got his hands on dragons, they might join him, and then it would be big trouble. I think that these are just independent creatures that are willing to join Sauron because they like the end goal, but they don't want to actually serve him in the same way that like orcs do or Waldreg did. They want to just be left alone once their job is done. That's how I view it. I don't actually know. I'm actually curious. Maybe I'll look that up about what Tolkien said on Balrogs, because that's an interesting point.
So, yeah, they're blocking the way, and Narvis there. He has his men move her, but she starts singing, and then there's kind of a funny line about, well, was that supposed to scare us away or something? Yeah. And then, no, but these are, and then she's summoned a bunch of bats.
Yeah.
And then they scare the dwarfs away.
Yeah, this is kind of a wacky scene. I don't mind how it kind of plays out, but why are the bats gonna scare them away? I would have thought maybe like some rocks, and she was like threatening.
I thought she was causing a rock fall.
Right.
Too,
so yeah. I thought okay, here's what I would have done. Remember I said like I don't know how to fix Tom Bombadil, but I can fix this scene. Have her do the same thing, but instead of bats, the rocks start to shake and some like rocks start to fall, and essentially she's threatening to collapse the tunnel, killing herself. She'll be a martyr. She'll kill herself to block the way, and it makes the dwarves back off, and they're gonna go to the king essentially.
Because the king wouldn't want the princess to just die, right?
Right.
Presumably.
Instead, the bats well, okay, the bats they're gone now though. What? They'll just come right back and then what? Like you've already screamed and the bats already left, so now no more bats, unless we have more bats like ready to go in another cavern somewhere. It kind of reminded me of like a Batman scene, where it's like or it's like you know, like he like summons these bats like freak people out or like break something, and I don't know. It seemed odd, for it to be in the Lord of the Rings thing. But yeah, I think it's a really quick scene. They just say they'll come back and they'll bring more men, and then during the fourth says we'll be ready. What? How? It's just two of you. I don't know what we're gonna be ready for.
Well, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
So we're back in Numenor, and they're summoning the sea worm. So
yeah,
they remind me with Doom. They do it with acoustics to summon the worm.
Yep, and they ask him again.
Really
do you agree that Pharazôn is king? Do you forsake?
Please, please, we don't want to kill you. Please agree.
Yeah. And then they have this weird. Luckily, there's this weird law on the books that if you are a traitor, the person that you are trying to install on the throne can take your place in this trial by the sea.
Yeah, and Arion, Hermione, is the one who knew this, so it made me think of, wasn't that one of the lines, wasn't that in the movie where she drops this gigantic bucket and says, I checked this out.
Yeah, oh my god, I'm doing that. Let me make a note of that right now. That's so good. I gotta do that, because honestly, that's what happened behind the scenes, and you know it, because both Hermione and the Queen were talking beforehand. We know that, because Hermione's like, I brought this person to talk some sense into you when he was chained up. And so afterwards, they're probably like, he's still going through with this. And then the Queen's like, or Hermione probably said, but you could take his place. And then the Queen is like, okay, I'll do that because I love him. Okay, that's going to be a fun little short video. That's hilarious. That's a great reference, too. But yeah, so luckily, on the books, there's this thing. And then Hermione then talks to Pharazôn and is like, Yeah, she's correct. That's how this works. And then he asks,
Like, really? Is that how
yeah,
this works?
he asks this other guy, he's like,
Really?
really? This doesn't make any sense. And the other guy's like, by the letter of the law, yes it is. Like, all right,
Are
damn
you
it.
sure?
All right.
Sure.
So let me get this straight. Instead of killing like the former captain of the Sea Guard who the people loved, we're gonna kill the queen that half the people in this city still love. This is
And if the
going
but the thing
badly.
is, if the queen dies, then the faithful should recognize him anyway, because he's her cousin.
Well, they would recognize him, but also recognize that he usurped the throne and then killed her. So I don't know if they would be like on board. They would still want him gone. I don't know who it would go to next. Would it go to his...
Kemen.
Oh my god.
So bad.
Oh my god. This is how you get these crazy kings in like English history, where like they don't deserve it and they're horrible, and it's stuff like this, where they don't like anyone, so they get rid of all the people. They follow some family tree and find some weasel Kemen who's gonna be like, I'll do it. I'll be the king of Numenor, and my first act will be killing all these people that are better than me at stuff. So the queen is gonna take his place. I didn't know what to expect, to be honest. I thought they were just gonna throw them out into the sea and see what happens. But no, they are indeed summoning some giant sea worm, and they have a little pool where they put people in.
Yep.
Now, I'm still confused why it's even a spectacle. You can't see anything. It's all underwater. And so, how do you even know if people didn't, like, hide somewhere in a rock? You know what I mean?
don't know. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Okay, so she goes under the water, and it's, like, super deep here somehow. She goes way under the water, and then this gigantic sea monster, like, approaches her. And...
Grabs her.
yeah, it...
pulls her under. Then they look into each other's eyes.
yeah, and it, like, the sea monster, like, recognizes, I don't know, like, she's innocent, and roars at her, and then is about to eat her. Like, the way that they film this, again, like, this is, like, you know that these people, like, got fresh out of, like, film school, and they're, like, analyzing all these awesome movies from, like, the 90s, and then they just try to duplicate it here. So this monster's, like, about to eat her. Cut to, we're above water, and the water's churning, and everyone's like, oh man, she's probably dead. I can't believe it.
Balsagar says, the Valar have deemed her, and then it spits out.
Yeah, then there's, like, a pause. Yeah, like... and then there's, like, yeah, a big explosion of water, and there she is.
And then she has her eagle moment when Elendil starts, hey, if you're going to chant Pharazôn at the coronation,
Now, right, so
chant Muriel's name now. And then now the whole audience is with Muriel.
right, the same people. I actually, this is in my notes, and I was yelling at the TV when this was happening. I was like, these same people who, upon a random ass eagle showing up, chanted Pharazôn, are now chanting Queen Muriel. I'd have the lot of them. I honestly feel like Staneth Baratheon at this point. I hate all my lords. They're all idiots. Like, they'll chant no matter what happens.
Yep.
And I can't abide that. That's horrible. So now they're chanting Queen Muriel. So what, she's now queen again? And Pharazôn's out? Like, no. He's crowned king.
I don't think yet, but Pharazôn's now really worried. He's like, oh, this looks really good for her.
But, like, they call her Queen Muriel.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be Queen Muriel, should it? Because she was never crowned queen. She was
I guess so. That's
Queen
true,
Regent. Yeah. Now they're like, hail Queen Muriel, Queen of the Sea. And I was thinking, okay, so are they going to say that, like, Pharazôn is King of Numenor, but Muriel's Queen of the Sea? And I was like, no, they're just giving her a name. Like, they're just making some silly stuff up to, like,
Well,
give her...
yeah, in Egypt they'll say King of the Nile. He's not the King of the Nile, he's King of the whole country.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So here, I was like, maybe they're trying to separate the two. But no, that doesn't make any sense. But regardless, Pharazôn is now feeling the pressure. And now, for sure, we see him touch the Palantir, and he sees Halbrand in the Palantir. I
Yes.
don't know what that means. I'm guessing he is going to
He sees the volcano and Halbrand.
Yeah, so he's gonna be like, Halbrand was the one that was behind this. Maybe he'll accuse Elendil of bringing Sauron here and get Elendil kicked out.
This could be the chance for, Numenor could show up again and take out Sauron.
Well,
because that is what happens, isn't it?
But Pharazôn, I think, is getting corrupted by that Palantir. Or something, because he's like looking super crazed in this moment. He's like clutching his chest, and he's like, his eyes are bugging out of his head. So he's not handling what's going on very well. His son's an idiot. He might get overthrown. All sorts of stuff's falling apart.
Life's hard for Pharazôn now.
Yeah, poor Pharazôn. And then as he's watching that Palantir, we get voiceover of a discussion between Adar and Galadriel, where she acknowledges, yes, Halbrand is.
Okay, I thought that happened in the previous scene. So this is it. Finally is revealed for sure.
Yeah.
But as I said, it's what they did before. I promised I would not tell them that there's Mithril.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Then why won't? But think about all the other elves. You should tell me whether there's Mithril there or not. I said I would never say.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. Like I'm still waiting for the scene where Adar is pissed that this happened. He's now now that Galadriel has been honest with him, he's unlocking her chains, and so she says that as we speak, Elrond is coming from Lindon with an army of elves. We don't know that's true, because the last we saw was Elrond getting there and saying we need an army of elves. But Gil-galad was pondering what to do, because he really wants to go to Mordor for some reason. And Elrond's like, shouldn't we fight the elves or fight the orcs that are literally right here, and then we can go to Mordor? And Gil-galad's not really sure. He's like, I don't know. Well, maybe we let Eregion fall. I'm not sure if we should save that city. So anyway, that's not even in this episode. That's just a thing for last episode. And Galadriel's like, my ring is with Elrond. He's come with an army. And Adar is trying to figure out what to do.
He's distrustful of the elves.
Yeah. Well, because he might have won over Galadriel, but Elrond and he and Galadriel share something in common. They have both been used by Sauron.
They both hooked up with the same guy.
Yeah, and so they have a common bond and a common enemy. The rest of the elves might not care to join them, and they would rather kill the orcs than deal with Sauron themselves. So I could see why he's not ready to join a company of elves.
I saw I have an alternate that's my interpretation too, but there's an alternate thought I had that maybe Galadriel revealing Elrond has the ring is all Adar wanted. And now he's detaining her again, and he's going to go after Elrond to get the ring.
Oh, I see. So he was just pretending. I mean, I think there's some truth to that. I think.
And he did trick Galadriel. Galadriel told him exactly where the ring was. Elrond has it. He's coming from Lindon. Elrond has it. Now Adar can say, okay, now detain her. We got what we wanted. Just now we have to go get Elrond. You
know what? I see. Because he even says you've revealed everything I wanted and more. So you know what? I think it could be both. Obviously, he wants to kill Sauron, and Galadriel could help him, because Galadriel can get close. Galadriel could just walk into Eregion and kill Sauron, theoretically, if she was allowed to go free, but also like was able to actually do the task. Um, so I think he wants to trust her because she would be a useful asset, but he's like you said, he's not fully trusting of her or the elves, and so because she doesn't seem to be on board with what he wants to do, he's not. He's also trying to get information out of her about where the ring is, because he's got his plan, which is they're just going to attack the city, and he's going to use. He's theoretically going to hopefully get the ring and use the ring plus the helmet to kill Sauron.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah, we're not really sure how that fight would go down yet, because they still have to breach the walls. They do have this moment where he's like showing Galadriel the battle plans, because not only has Galadriel revealed all of the information to Adar, Adar's now going to reveal all the information to Galadriel, and part of that information is she's questioning like, how are you going to be able to take on Eregion? You only have one company of orcs, and that's when he's got this whole like, it's not with a single legion, and then it reveals
many legions.
Yeah, which is very similar to the scene in Two Towers.
Not with yeah.
yeah. It's like, my lord, there is no such army, and then you reveal this massive orc army in front of Saruman. I think this is a better way to hint at it. You know what I mean? Than to do a straight quote. If you're gonna do it like this, like, it's a bit more acceptable, because obviously we recognize what it is, but not everyone does. Other people just go with it and be like, oh, that's pretty good. Whereas if you do like a straight quote that's like well known, that's when you have these issues where it's like, hey, it doesn't quite fit the setting. It doesn't quite fit the themes of what the quote is supposed to be about. So yeah, I'm fine with how this played out here though, and
yeah, Galadriel thinks this is Sauron's plan. He wants you to attack.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is Galadriel's kind of smart here, because I agree.
I think somehow Sauron can use the ring to manipulate the orcs. Maybe, I don't know.
But no, I actually think that
control of Adar's army.
Well, so my understanding was that Sauron is pretty close. Like, he's already got the dwarfs their rings.
He's pretty close to getting the 9.
He's pretty close to getting the 9. He basically already has it. Like, he just needs a little touch from Celebrimbor to not screw it up this time. So he's almost done. And once he's done, he kind of wants there to be a big war going on. So he's fine with the orcs attacking Eregion, and having the elves and orcs have a big fight. Because he just wants to get his rings and get out.
Yeah.
And so I think Galadriel might be right in that by attacking this city, instead of going in discreetly, which I think is probably the better option, if you trust Galadriel, which I don't, but if you did, and if she were able to not lose control, she could easily sneak into... She wouldn't even have to sneak. She could just walk up to the gates of Eregion. Walk through the gates. And since no one is disturbing Celebrimbor, and she could say, don't tell anyone of my presence, and the guards will probably respect that from her.
She's commander of the Northern
That's
Armies,
right.
yeah.
She could probably sneak in there and either kill Sauron or do something to him. I'm not really sure what she can actually do in a physical fight.
It might be hard if he has that power to manipulate her, distort her reality, and...
True, but even without the power, I'm just like she can't just stab him, right? Like, that won't do anything. She needs to do some...
Well, I mean, what was special about Gil-galad and Elendil killing Sauron the first time? Like in the actual story, not the Peter Jackson when he just cuts off the finger.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to look that up.
Did they just use normal weapons?
Or did they
even special elven weapons? But
Yeah.
That's something Galadriel should have access to.
Yeah, no, you're right. I don't know. Like here, it makes it seem like no matter what you do, he's gonna come back unless you use magic interwoven with his death, and it can't just be a stabbing. It has to be much more profound somehow. And I don't really know how you do it.
Yeah, you're right. I guess that didn't kill him for good, so maybe that's exactly what they don't want to do. Like, yeah, we could kill him, but we want to really kill him for good.
Yeah.
Because if we just stab him, he'll be back in another couple thousand years, and we gotta do it all over again.
Exactly. And this actually also explains why, because one of my problems is, why does he make the ring if he can just resurrect no matter what? And
right.
You could obviously argue he makes the ring to control people, but ultimately it doesn't even work because people attack him when he has the ring. So
it didn't work at all on the dwarfs. It just worked on men.
Yeah, and it didn't even work on all men because there was a huge army of men and elves that confronted him.
Yeah.
And so my thought was maybe he makes the ring, like, because of the show, maybe he makes the ring because he's worried they've discovered a way to kill him. And so he's worried that they're eventually going to succeed. And so this way the ring allows him to stay alive despite their efforts to kill him with their new way of doing so.
Yeah.
Although this is like thinking way too much. Like, is this what like Sauron is constantly like thinking about? I don't know. I mean, it might be, but it just seems weird for him to constantly be thinking about how can I not die? I feel like his ego would be like, I'm not going to die. What happened to me before was a small setback that was a moment of weakness. I won't let that happen again. I wouldn't think he's thinking how not to die. He's thinking how I'm going to control everything.
Yeah.
Now, this is... the scene kind of unfolds, so Adar... So Galadriel's freaking out. She's like, this is what Sauron wants.
Yeah.
Adar's like, okay, she's screaming in my face. Guards, take her away.
But then there's actually a cut of Glug. That's the one orc with the wife and kid at home. And he seems to be taken with what Galadriel's saying. So maybe there's something gonna happen here. Maybe Glug's gonna
like let her go. Yeah.
Glug might let her go, or Glug might assassinate Adar or something. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, no. The orcs are starting to turn on Adar. Okay, we need to do a whole separate video. Maybe we'll do it at the end of the season. I think there's been a massive change in the orcs and how they operate, and I can't figure out exactly what it is, and also I can't figure out why it is, but it does seem like they went from worshipping Adar in a way to he's just a D-bag military commander.
Yeah, maybe now that they've gotten what they wanted, which was the homeland, they're kind of done with them.
Yeah,
you know?
And it just seems to have happened in an amazing turn from literally. There's a scene in the first season where there's an orc dying, and Adar approaches, and all the orcs part, and he reaches down and he's like, "You've fought well, or you've done well, my son," or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then all like he's like consoling the orcs and like saying it'll be okay, we'll find a homeland. It went from that moment to these moments where they're just straight up like not trusting him, as if he's like somehow the new Sauron, when he's simply here to kill Sauron. It's just, we'll talk about more. We'll do a whole video on that because the orcs are an integral part to this, and they are starting to be confusing to me. But you're right. Yeah, we do get that moment, and it's they linger on it. So like they make an emphasis to show that, and then we get to see like the shot. The way they pan this shot is like you see that moment, then you see the military developments of all the orcs all across this forested area beyond some water, and we look over and there's a Region, and there's some elves looking over in the distance.
Yeah. So then, the Region starts, preparing for battle as well as it can. And then you have Anatar cutting his hand. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's putting his blood into the. And it's also strange because didn't they say they didn't have any mithril? Apparently, he had some. But
Well,
anyway.
this is actually a big topic. We'll get to that.
But Anatar's cutting his hand. I think he's putting his blood into the mithril, so that this is the way he manipulates the.
And remember, I said he did something with the dwarven rings. Like when he grabbed it, his hand looked funny.
Yeah.
I did point that out, and I think we're seeing that here. I think that's what's happening. He's putting his blood into the mithril, and that's how he's going to corrupt these next rings.
Yeah. And then we see Celebrimbor at work.
Yep.
And he hears the siege alarm, and he wants to go see. And Anatar's like, "It's nothing."
Yeah, it's nothing. Nothing to worry about.
Just I got everything taken care of.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
So it gets a little physical because Celebrimbor actually pushes him and says, "I'm done with. I'm tired of you. Just tell me what to do." And,
Yeah.
Then he goes outside, and Antar does a spell or something, and it's distorting his reality. So Celebrimbor walks out there. He sees the elven courtyard, and
Yeah.
like it's just people enjoying their day, having a good time, and he's like, "Huh?"
Now, I have a question for you. Right before we get to that, the courtyard scene, during that physical confrontation, it's brief, but there's a moment where, Celebrimbor is gonna go out the door, and Halbrand, I mean, it is Halbrand, but he grabs his arm, and Celebrimbor says, "Unhand me, friend."
Yeah.
And is that? I mean, obviously, it doesn't have to, not everything has to be a reference, but I couldn't help but not hear "Tell me, friend" when Gandalf is talking to Saruman. When did Saruman the Wise abandon reason for madness? That right before that he goes, "Tell me, friend," and I just thought the way that
Maybe.
Celebrimbor pauses between "unhand me" and "friend," there's a similar dynamic there where, again, you have Celebrimbor who looked up to Anatar, and now he's seeing him kind of for what he is, and Gandalf the same way. He's always thought, Saruman was both wise and powerful, and now he's seeing him like be kind of going crazy and wanting to join evil. And here Celebrimbor was like, maybe this guy is evil, so it's got that whole kind of like the friend. He kind of spits friend out, like I used to call you friend, but we're not friends, type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's right before like he walks out, and that's when you're right. He sees, like, I will also say, Anatar has like this hissy fit right before he leaves. So he unhands him, and he's like, "If you leave this tower, all of Middle Earth will fall, and I swear to you that
It's gonna be your fault.
it's gonna be your fault, and every
Everyone's
soul
gonna-
in the seen and unseen world will know it's your fault." It's got this like 13-year-old girl, like,
Yeah.
like having a fit and like just yelling all sorts of like nonsense, because we both know what's gonna happen. Like, before I even saw this scene, I knew it was gonna happen. We knew he was gonna go out there. He's not gonna know what's going on. Anatar's gonna then come and make up and be friends with him again. You literally just told him if he leaves this tower, everything's his fault. And now you're gonna be like, "Come on, buddy, let's go and make those rings again. Let's do it." Like, you can't go from like, "I will make sure everyone knows it's you," to, "Hey, let's be friends. Let's hug it out. Let's go make those rings." What do you say? Like, it's such a dichotomy.
Yeah.
And Celebrimbor is just so far gone in his mind now that like that doesn't even faze him. It went from Celebrimbor was like, "Oh my god, Anatar's evil," to, "I'm leaving this tower. I don't care what you say," to, "Oh, everything's fine. I guess we're good. We're cool. Let's go make those rings." Like, everything must be just like a haze to him at this point.
Yeah, he doesn't know what's going on.
Now, the thing that Celebrimbor, or the thing that
And you Did we talk about how he gives him Feanor's hammer? Or are we getting to that?
Well, yeah. So right there in that scene, when when Anatar gives Celebrimbor the mithril, we saw him cut his hand. Now, there's a big debate about where this mithril came from. I personally don't think it's mithril. What I think it is
That's true.
there is a statue in the courtyard. And on top of that statue was a crystal. And that crystal is gone, I believe. I think Anatar took that crystal, which I don't know what it is. Maybe it was mithril. I don't know. But whatever it was, I think he took that crystal, infused it with his blood, and has...
So that so when between the destroyed reality shot and the reality shot, that crystal disappears?
I believe so.
Okay, I didn't notice that, but I wasn't looking. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so I believe that's what happens here. I'll
I mean, I'd wondered though, because when he had the mithril from the other rings, like it's not like the mithril doesn't get destroyed.
That's what I was confused about. Couldn't you melt down the ruined rings, or does the mithril get like consumed in some sort of magical, like during the forging process, the mithril gets combined in such a way that there's no way to yeah.
Okay, good.
That's my only thought is that's what happened here. But yeah, that's when okay. So, I'm just looking at it now cuz there is they look up at the statue and the statue has it in the fake.
I mean, it's a representation of the Silmaril.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this is when he gets his hammer, where he goes, now you're gonna make these rings. They're gonna be the most precious creations drink in all the Middle Earth. Everything is precious, and this is where he's like kind of boosting his ego. He brings out the hammer. Whose hammer is this? Like what?
This is Feanor's hammer. That's the guy who made the Silmarils.
I see. Okay.
And it's Celebrimbor's grandfather as well.
Where'd he get this hammer from?
It's Celebrimbor had it. It's in his workshop.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So this isn't like...
Remember, he was showing it off to Elrond.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So this isn't like he brought this hammer from somewhere crazy. This was always in that workshop. And he's like, now it's time for you to pick up your father's hammer and make the most magical creation the world has ever seen. Or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so then we get to see... You know what? I kind of think it's fun. So I thought what would happen was... And this is how I would have filmed it. Celebrimbor goes back into the tower. The doors close, and as soon as you hear the closing latch, there's like a snap, and everything is chaos. But Sauron decides to take a stroll through his own delusion for a second here. So Celebrimbor's gone. We're not tricking anybody. We're just tricking ourselves at this point.
Oh.
Like,
I think it's just a camera technique. I don't.
No, but it actually but okay. But if you go back and watch it, so the doors close. We're way zoomed out. The doors close. We then zoom in on Sauron. We then pan and watch all of these elves like having a grand old time.
Okay, so yes, okay, maybe he does decide to like, okay, let's hang around.
And then all of a sudden, boom! It comes. Like, we make a turn, and as we turn, things get dark, and it's chaos. So for a second there, Sauron's just standing, basking in his own fake illusion. Like, oh, this is pretty good, actually. And then, now he's kind of strolling the streets as everyone's, like, screaming and running for their lives.
Yes.
He looks deranged, but this is a cool look. I'm not gonna lie. He does a slow walk, too, and just, like, head down, like, everything's coming up Sauron. Everything's going my way. So he clearly wants this to happen. He's not even like upset that there's a war brewing.
Yeah.
And honestly, like this scene kind of just fades out like this, as
There's a
he
catapult.
watches. Yeah, he watches from a tower somewhere. He does like this weird like moment where he raises his hands up.
Yeah, they say that in the bonus material that they're doing like he's doing a conductor thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the music actually tunes up there too. That was in the, because they've been doing interviews after every episode.
I gotta watch these things. I don't.
They're good. They're
I
actually
should.
good. They interviewed the composer Bear McCreary, and that he said that he's doing composing. He's doing a conductor thing there, and then he lined the music to make it seem like it was an orchestra tuning up.
Yeah, because like a conductor, he's the one like pulling the strings and like telling.
Yes.
He tells the players when to play and how much, all that stuff. So he set this in motion, which we talked about before, back when we were debating what happened to those elven messengers. We had talked about the fact that Halbrand, as Sauron, clearly had started this in motion by telling Adar his plan, and knowing what Adar would then do with that information. Now, I don't know how Sauron knew Adar would find out that Halbrand was Sauron. You know what I mean? Like, up until this point, I can kind of see how Sauron's mind was working and how he had planted these ideas. But he had no way of knowing that Galadriel would be captured and it would be revealed that Halbrand was Sauron. Unless he just assumed that in the messages that would eventually come out, someone would say
He's
it.
gonna figure this out eventually. Yeah.
Like it just seems odd to be like, eventually he'll figure out I lied, and by then I'll have made some rings, and then he'll attack the city. Like he's clearly put a lot of thought into it.
Because he was just supposed to go and figure out where Sauron was
and
come
report back. Yeah.
And he never came back.
No. So maybe that's what it was. You don't even need to capture Galadriel. The fact that Halbrand never came back means he lied to you. He's a liar.
Yeah.
And maybe he was Sauron the whole time. And then, it makes sense now. Remember I asked, why did Sauron even go back to see the orcs? And we debated about, maybe he thought he could go and easily turn them, but Adar had too strong a hold or something like that, so then he devised a new plan. Well, regardless of why he initially went, we now see the plan he came up with in the moment there, which was, I'm going to use these orcs to cause chaos with the elves to allow me to finish my work and make these rings. Because without the orcs here, this is essentially done. Like, without the orcs being a huge wedge between the two big cities of the elves, then
Elrond and his team would have already made it.
That's right. The fact that like those two messengers never made it, and then we heard back a weird message from Celebrimbor saying I'm closing up shop, but like nothing else has come from Eregion. There should be constant like travel and communications. The fact that like stuff is like barely getting through and they're not responding to our messages, something's up. They would have sent people anyway, regardless of if Sauron was suspected to be there or not. And so you needed some army or some wedge to make sure that Lyndon didn't just show up like day one with a bunch of elves and take you down. So this is all coming into play for him, and that's why he's conducting this. And then we see these fiery balls being launched from the trebuchets and catapults. And that's the end of the episode. And so the next episode, the penultimate episode, which is now, thanks to Game of Thrones, these are like the big battle episodes.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what I expect we're gonna see here. We talked about at length prior to the season that they hired a bunch of extras, over 2,000 or something like that, for these battles.
Oh, wow.
So we are gonna see a massive battle scene coming up, and I don't know, obviously I think they've done so far a really good job of not over CGIing the orcs. obviously you have to CGI like the larger ones, like the trolls, and you have to
Right.
CGI like the battle, like even like back in the day, like the original trilogy. There's a lot of CGI there. They hide it, and they're really clever about it. I think for the
Yeah.
most part they've done a good job with the orcs, especially during the battles, because it still looks like people in costume, which is what I want it to look like. Like, I don't want it to look like fake stuff that's not really there. So it feels, their presence feels like it's in the environment, and I like that so far. So I'm really excited to see what they do with the battle. Battles are tough though, just because you're always trying to like one up the previous stuff, and especially with Lord of the Rings, the bar is still like, that's still the pinnacle for most people, I would say. Some of the pinnacle battle scenes are from the original trilogy,
Yeah.
so it's really hard to live up to that. I'm just hoping it's good and like rewatchable in like an exciting way. The same way that when I rewatch the battles in the original trilogy, I'm excited every time. You know, even though I know exactly motion to motion what everyone's gonna do in those scenes, I
Yeah.
still love watching it. And honestly, there's some other movies like Star Wars has that from time to time, especially the lightsaber duels in the prequels. They're just so exciting that I can watch them and rewatch them time and time again. I kind of want to have that here. You don't have to beat it. You just have to have excitement and make people, like, make me go, oh my god, I gotta show this to my friends. Like, like, like they're not gonna believe what this show pulled off. That's what they gotta try to do. Game of Thrones failed at that. Nobody's showing the battle in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, they never really. Yeah, that's true.
Like, you might show the mountain fight scene just because that's such a cool fight and like such a large man, but no one's showing like the long night battle. Even like
Yeah,
Hardhome is okay, but
yeah, I'd say the Long Night and
the Battle of the Bastards is the other.
those are the only two they really did an effort to do a large scale battle, isn't it?
Yeah, and the
Most
Bastards
of
one
the
is the only one that's kind of good, but even that one has major issues with
Yeah.
just visually.
they had some battles, but it wasn't grand. It seemed like it was happening on a stage.
Yeah. And so if you're gonna try, like, they have all this money behind them, they're gonna try and make this thing massive. I am excited to see what they do here. I don't know if I want the whole thing to be battle, because I think the beauty about the original trilogy is how it cuts to and from the battle with other characters not in battle but experiencing other
It's
emotions
true,
that
but when there's I guess they can. They're not. They can make the episode as long as they want, I guess. But if they're limited to an hour, it might take away from it.
and this is my thing. This is like where it's tough. We're like, how do you tell a compelling battle narrative and have those juxtaposing things all within an hour? It can be done. I mean, I think if you look at the Battle of Helm's Deep, that's probably only an hour.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think it can be done. It's just you've got to do it. You have to have already established everyone's situation. And what I think we might see is a juxtaposing what's happening with the dwarves, with what's happening with the orcs and the elves, with what's happening with Nori, the stranger, the assassins in the desert, and the wizard there. I don't think that story has been set up enough for it to really work, though. So I'm kind of worried if we're cutting from battle to Harfoot's being captured by dark wizards. It's because I still don't know what the heck's going on down there with the dark wizards. So
Yeah, we don't know at all.
Yeah. we will see. We'll have to stay tuned for that. But I guess on that note, let us know down below. Are you guys excited for the next episode? How'd you feel about this one? This was our second Tom Bombadil episode. I don't know if it's our last. I hard to imagine it's our last. So far, how do you feel about Tom Bombadil and his presence in the show? I'm hearing a lot of mixed reviews myself on Tom. Obviously, I'm leaving out the people who absolutely hate the show because they obviously they're gonna hate it. But even if you don't like the show or you don't love it, you might have been a big Tom fan, so maybe you do find his inclusion a decent one. They have some moments of him feeling like Tom from the books, but other moments feel like he's just another Gandalf type guy, but with a little bit of a silly attitude. So let us know down below where you guys stand on Tom, and also what your theories are on who Tom is. I know that's a big topic people love to talk about, and at some point we probably should do a deep dive on Tom, but that's for another day. So with that, see you guys in the next one.
Very good.
Yeah.